He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was a systems engineer for the Terran Diplomatic Corps. A job that mostly involved fixing things that stopped working at the worst possible time. Translation nodes, power relays, air filters, quiet problems that no one noticed unless they failed. That was why Evan had been sent to the Theralan Imperial Summit. The Theralan Empire was old. Very old. Their buildings were carved from stone-like metal that shimmered softly under the light. Their culture was strict, formal, and heavy with tradition. Humans were new to them, young, fast-growing, and considered useful but unimportant. Evan knew the rules well. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make eye contact with royalty. Do not step beyond your assigned zone. He followed those rules carefully as he walked through the outer halls of the Imperial Palace, his tool case hanging from one shoulder. Alien guards lined the corridor, tall and armored, their expressions unreadable. Their weapons were polished and silent, but Evan felt their attention on him. He kept his eyes forward and his steps calm. The translator array near the throne chamber had begun to fail during rehearsals. Static, delays, and dangerous mistranslations were appearing. For a diplomatic summit with dozens of species, that kind of error could start an incident, so Evan was called in. Fix it and leave, his supervisor had told him. No delays, no attention. That suited Evan just fine. As he reached the edge of the throne chamber, an escort drone hovered beside him and projected a soft signal. You may enter, it said. The doors opened without sound. The throne chamber was enormous. Light poured in from high crystalline windows. Banners of the Theralan Empire hung like frozen waves. The floor was smooth and reflective, showing the ceiling like water. Rows of alien nobles stood on raised platforms, their robes glowing with subtle patterns that shifted as they moved. At the far end of the hall stood the throne, and upon it sat the alien queen. Evan did not look directly at her. He had seen images. Of course everyone had. Queen Thalzyra of Theralan was said to be calm, intelligent, and unshakable. She had ruled for centuries. Entire wars had ended with a single word from her. Evan felt very small. He moved quietly along the edge of the chamber toward the translator array mounted near the throne's base. The device hummed unevenly, its lights flickering in the wrong rhythm. He knelt down, opened the casing, and began to work. At first, everything felt normal. Then the room changed. The sound in the chamber softened, like air being pulled inward. Evan felt it before he saw it, a strange pressure. Not painful, but heavy. He froze, his hands still inside the machine. A murmur rippled through the hall. Evan slowly lifted his head. The queen was standing. That alone was unusual. Royal protocol stated that Queen Thalzyra rarely rose from her throne unless addressing the full assembly. But she was not speaking. She was staring, straight at him. Evan's heart began to pound. He immediately pulled his hands away from the device and stood, stepping back as quickly and respectfully as possible. I'm sorry, he said, his voice low and careful. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'll leave right away. But the queen did not answer. Instead, she stepped down from the throne. The sound of her feet touching the floor echoed through the chamber. Alien nobles stiffened. Guards shifted, hands tightening on their weapons. Confusion spread like a silent wave. Evan stood frozen. The queen walked forward slowly, her gaze never leaving him. Her expression was not anger. It was not curiosity. It was something deeper. Recognition. Before Evan could understand what was happening, the queen stopped several steps away from him, and then she knelt. The impact was silent, but the effect was not. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several nobles stumbled back in shock. One of the guards spoke loudly in alarm before being silenced by another. Evan's mind went blank. No, please, he said quickly, panic rising in his chest. There's been a mistake. I'm nobody. Please stand up. He reached out without thinking, then stopped himself mid-motion. Touching royalty was forbidden. Even being this close felt wrong. The queen bowed her head. The signs do not lie, she said softly, her voice echoing through the chamber. The witness stands before us. Evan swallowed hard. I don't know what you mean, he said. I'm just here to fix the translator. The Queen slowly raised her head and looked at him again, her eyes glowing faintly with inner light. You do not know, she said. That is as it was written. The chamber was in chaos now. Whispers rose from every platform. Advisors spoke urgently to one another. Guards moved into new positions. Unsure whether to protect the Queen or protect the human, Evan felt dizzy. This could not be happening. Your Majesty, one of the senior council members said, stepping forward carefully. With respect, this is a human technician. There is no record. There was no record before the silence. The Queen replied calmly. Her tone stopped the council member cold. She turned her gaze back to Evan. Human, she said gently. What is your name? Evan, he replied. Evan Hale. The Queen repeated it slowly, as if tasting the sound. Evan Hale, she said. You are under my protection. A sharp intake of breath swept the room. Evan shook his head in disbelief. I didn't ask for protection. I didn't do anything. You exist, the Queen said. That is enough. She stood gracefully, rising back to her full height. When she turned, the nobles lowered their heads at once. The guards straightened, uncertain but obedient. Seal the chamber, the Queen commanded. No one leaves. The doors closed. Evan felt trapped. He glanced around, suddenly aware of how alone he was. He had no weapon, no authority, no explanation. Just a tool case at his feet and 100 alien eyes watching him. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Evan said quietly. If I caused offense, I apologize. The Queen approached him again, stopping at a respectful distance this time. There is no offense, she said. Only memory. She gestured toward the translator array. You may finish your task, she added. Evan hesitated. His instincts screamed that this was wrong, that he should leave immediately. But refusing a direct royal instruction was unthinkable. He knelt again, hands shaking slightly as he returned to the machine. He forced himself to focus connections, signals, power flow, familiar things. As he worked, he felt the Queen's presence behind him, steady and watchful. The device responded quickly once he adjusted a misaligned crystal and stabilized the power feed. The hum evened out. The lights returned to their proper pattern. It's fixed, Evan said, standing slowly. Thank you, the Queen replied. Her words carried weight, not as a formality, but as something sincere. The Queen turned to the assembly. This human will remain within the palace, she announced. He is not a guest. He is not a prisoner. She paused. He is a reminder. Silence followed. Evan felt a chill run through him. 2 guards approached, not roughly, but firmly, and gestured for him to follow. Evan picked up his tool case, his thoughts racing. As he was led away, he looked back once. The Queen was watching him, her expression unreadable once more. Evan had arrived to fix a machine. He was leaving as something he did not understand. And somewhere deep within the ancient walls of the palace, a forgotten truth had begun to wake. End of part 1. The room given to him was quiet, clean, and far larger than anything he had ever used before. Soft lights glowed along the walls, adjusting gently as he moved. A window showed the stars of an unfamiliar sky, bright and calm. None of it made him feel safe. He sat on the edge of the bed, his tool case still closed at his feet, as if holding it close might remind him of who he really was. A technician. A normal human. Someone who fixed broken machines and went home afterward. But nothing felt normal anymore. The alien Queen had knelt. No matter how many times Evan replayed the moment in his mind, it still made no sense. A soft tone sounded at the doorway. Enter, Evan said, unsure why he even bothered to sound calm. The door slid open, and a tall alien woman stepped inside. She wore the robes of a royal scholar, marked with thin silver lines that glowed faintly. Her posture was respectful, her movements careful. I am Scholar Velsha, she said. I have been assigned to you. Assigned to me for what? Evan asked. To help you understand, she replied. Evan let out a slow breath. Good, because I don't. Velsha inclined her head slightly and gestured toward a small table. May I sit? Evan nodded. She placed a thin data slab on the table, its surface dark. You believe the queen made an error, Velsha said. I know she did, Evan replied. I'm not important. I don't have power. I don't even understand your politics. That, Velsha said calmly, is precisely why this matters. She activated the slab. Images appeared, old ones. Star charts, ancient structures, faded symbols carved into stone. Long before the Theralan Empire ruled these stars. Velsha began. Our people faced extinction. We were scattered. Our technology failing. Our worlds dying one by one. Evan leaned forward despite himself. We sent calls for help. She continued. Most were ignored. Some were answered with conditions we could not accept. The image shifted to a simple symbol, 3 lines intersecting at a point. Then came a response without demand, Velsha said softly. From a species not yet known to the galaxy. Humans? Evan asked. Velsha nodded. Not the humans you know today, she said. But your ancestors. Few in number, limited in reach. Yet they came. The images changed again. Crude ships compared to modern ones. Repairs made with basic tools. Shared supplies. They did not conquer, Velsha said. They repaired. They taught. They stayed until we could stand again. Evan felt a strange tightness in his chest. I've never heard of this, he said. No one has, Velsha replied. History was altered after the silence. The silence? Evan asked. Velsha hesitated. A period when records vanished. Alliances were erased. Names were removed from stone and code alike. She looked at Evan carefully. Humans were removed, she said. Evan stared at the screen. Why? Because fear grew, Velsha answered. Your species did not seek control, yet others feared what that meant. A people strong enough to help without ruling unsettled the balance of power. Evan shook his head slowly. That doesn't explain why the queen knelt to me. Velsha touched the slab again. A new image appeared, this one, a living scan. Among those ancient humans, she said. Some were entrusted with living memory. The scan highlighted small markers, faint and complex. Your species carries knowledge not only in books, but in patterns, she continued. Most humans never awaken these patterns. They live and die, without knowing. And I did? Evan asked quietly. Velsha studied him. You carry a complete marker. Rare. Very rare. Evan looked down at his hands. They looked the same as always. I don't feel different, he said. You would not, Velsha replied. The marker does not grant power. It grants recognition. Oh, a pause filled the room. The prophecy speaks of the witness. Velsha said. Not a ruler. Not a weapon. A reminder of what was given freely. Evan leaned back, overwhelmed. So because of something my ancestors did, I'm… What? A symbol? Yes, Velsha said. And symbols are dangerous. As if summoned by her words, a faint tremor ran through the palace. Evan tensed. What was that? He asked. Velsha stood. You should remain here. Before Evan could respond, the lights dimmed slightly. A distant alarm echoed through the halls, not loud, but controlled. Moments later, the door slid open again. 2 royal guards entered, alert but composed. There has been an incident, one of them said. Please come with us. Evan's heart began to race. What kind of incident? An internal breach, the guard replied. You are not the target. But your presence changes priorities. That's comforting, Evan muttered. They led him through side corridors, far from the main halls. The palace felt different now, tense, watchful. Evan noticed guards in places that had been empty before. Doors sealed behind them as they passed. What's really going on? Evan asked. Velsha walked beside him. Not everyone accepts the past, she said. And not everyone wishes humans to be remembered. They reached a secure chamber smaller than the throne hall, but still grand. The queen stood at its center, speaking quietly with her advisors. When she saw Evan, she turned. Are you harmed? She asked. No, Evan replied. The queen regarded him for a long moment. Confusion is honest, she said. fear would be understandable. I'm trying not to panic, Evan said. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, the Queen replied. That is why I trust you. Before Evan could answer, one of the advisors stepped forward. Your Majesty. The advisor said, we have confirmed it. The breach was deliberate. Someone attempted to access restricted archives, linked to pre-silence records. Evan felt a chill. They were looking for information about humans? Yes, the Queen said. Or about you. Silence fell. Evan took a steadying breath. If my presence is causing trouble, he said slowly, maybe I should leave. The Queen's gaze sharpened not in anger, but in resolve. No, she said. Running would confirm their fears. She stepped closer to Evan, lowering her voice. Long ago, humans stayed when leaving would have been safer, she said. That choice saved my people. Evan swallowed. I'm not them. You are enough, the Queen replied. A sudden sound echoed from the corridor outside, a sharp clash, then hurried movement. Guards shifted instantly, forming a protective line. Evan's pulse spiked. What's happening? He asked. The Queen did not look away from him. Proof, she said softly, that the past is not as buried as some hoped. The doors sealed shut. Evan stood in the center of an alien empire, carrying a history he never knew existed, while unseen forces moved against him. He had arrived to fix a machine. Now, the galaxy was testing whether humanity still remembered how to stand without being asked. And Evan was no longer sure he was allowed to walk away. End of part 2. The palace did not calm after the doors sealed. If anything, it grew more alert. Guards moved with purpose through the corridors outside the chamber. Quiet signals passed between them, lights flashing briefly on their armor. Evan stood near the center of the room, trying to stay out of the way while everyone else seemed to know exactly where to be. He felt very human in that moment. Small, unprepared. The alien Queen turned to her advisors, speaking in a low, controlled tone. Evan could not understand the language, but he understood the mood. This was not panic. This was readiness. After a moment, the Queen faced Evan again. You should sit, she said. Evan realized his legs were tense. He nodded and moved to a nearby seat. Velsha joined him, her expression calm but focused. Is there going to be a fight? Evan asked quietly. Not if wisdom prevails, Velsha replied. But some believe fear is wiser. Before Evan could ask what that meant, a sharp sound echoed through the corridor outside. Not loud, but sudden. The guards reacted instantly. Stepping forward, the Queen raised one hand. Report, she said. A guard activated a small projection. An image appeared in the air, grainy but clear enough. A side passage, now damaged. A door forced open. Several figures moving quickly, trying to avoid detection. They are not palace guards, the officer said. They wear false markings. Evan's stomach tightened. They're inside because of me. Because of history, Velsha corrected gently. The Queen studied the image. They are heading toward the lower archive levels. Evan frowned. Those are the records you mentioned. The ones from before. The silence. Yes, Velsha said. If they destroy or alter them, the truth may be lost again. B. Velsha said. Odor first together. Odor first together. Evan looked between them. Then we should stop them. All eyes turned to him. The Queen tilted her head slightly. You are not trained for this. I know, Evan said quickly. I'm not saying I should fight anyone, but I understand systems, security networks, access paths. If they're trying to avoid detection, I might be able to help you track them. Silence followed. One of the advisors began to object, but the Queen raised her hand again. Let him speak, she said. Evan took a breath. Your palace is old, but it's been updated over time. That means layers. New systems built over old ones. People who don't fully understand the old layers make mistakes. Velsha's eyes widened slightly. He is correct, she said. The lower archives still rely on hybrid systems. The Queen considered Evan carefully. You would assist, she said. Not command. That's fine, Evan replied. I don't want command. The Queen nodded once. Then come. They moved quickly. Evan followed the Queen, Velsha, and a small group of guards through a private corridor. The palace felt different now, less ceremonial, more real. Walls showed signs of age here, old symbols carved beside newer panels. As they walked, Evan noticed something strange. Some of the symbols looked familiar, not exactly familiar, but understandable. Lines and shapes that felt logical, almost comforting. He slowed slightly, staring at one carving. Is something wrong? Velsha asked. No, Evan said slowly. I feel like I've seen this before. Somewhere. Velsha exchanged a glance with the Queen but said nothing. They reached a security node overlooking the archive approach. Evan stepped forward, hands moving without conscious thought as he examined the interface. This system is listening for high-energy signals, he said. Weapons. Power surges. But if they're using low-output tools, it won't notice. He adjusted a few settings, rerouting passive sensors. There, he said. Now it's watching movement patterns instead of energy spikes. Almost immediately, several new markers appeared on the display. They're moving faster now, a guard said. They know they've been noticed, Evan replied. Which means they're nervous. The Queen looked at him. You remain calm. Evan shrugged faintly. Machines make sense. Fear doesn't. They moved again, this time with purpose. The group split at a junction. Evan stayed with Velsha and two guards, guiding them through maintenance paths rarely used. The air was cooler here. The lights, dimmer. Suddenly, a sound echoed ahead, a metallic clang, followed by hurried movement. They're close, one guard whispered. Evan's heart began to race, but his mind stayed focused. There, he said, pointing to a panel. That access door leads directly to the archive core. If they reach it, they can wipe everything. The guards prepared to move, but Evan raised a hand. Wait, he said. If we rush in, they might destroy the data out of panic. Velsha looked at him. What do you suggest? Evan swallowed. Let me talk. The guards stared at him. That is extremely unwise, one of them said. I know, Evan replied. But if they're doing this out of fear, force will only prove their point. The Queen's voice came through the communicator. Proceed carefully. Evan stepped forward before anyone could stop him. He entered the archive chamber slowly, hands visible, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his ears. Inside, 3 figures froze. They wore cloaks marked with false insignia. One of them held a device already connected to the archive console. Stop, Evan said calmly. Please. One of them turned sharply. A human? Yes, Evan said. Just a human. You shouldn't exist here, another hissed. You shouldn't be remembered. Evan took a careful step closer. I didn't ask to be remembered. I didn't even know. The figure at the console hesitated. You think this ends with you? The leader said. Your kind changes everything. The balance. The order. Evan shook his head. We're not here to rule you. We never were. That's what makes you dangerous, the leader snapped. Evan felt fear, then real fear, but he held his ground. My ancestors helped because it was right, he said. Not because they wanted control. If you erase that, you're not protecting the future. You're repeating the same mistake. The leader's grip on the device tightened. And if we stop? The leader asked. What happens then? Evan met their gaze. Then you live. You're heard. And the truth stands on its own. Quote, silence stretched. Behind Evan, guards waited, tense but still. Finally, the device was disconnected. The intruder stepped back slowly. We didn't expect a human to stand in front of us, the leader said quietly. Neither did I, Evan replied. The guards moved in, securing the intruders without force. When it was over, Evan's legs nearly gave out. Velsha caught his arm. You did well. I was terrified, Evan admitted. That, she said, does not lessen what you did. Later, in the great chamber, the Queen addressed the council. Evan stood off to the side, exhausted and overwhelmed. The truth was nearly lost again tonight, the Queen said. Not because it is false, but because it is powerful. She gestured toward Evan. This human did not threaten. He did not command. He stood. Murmurs spread through the council. For centuries, the Queen continued, we feared what humanity represented. Tonight, we were reminded why our ancestors trusted them. She turned to Evan. You did not act as a symbol, she said. You acted as yourself. Evan bowed his head slightly. I just didn't want anyone to get hurt. The Queen smiled faintly. That, she said, is why the galaxy should pay attention. Far beyond the palace, messages began to spread. Quiet at first, then louder. A human had stood unarmed in an ancient empire, and the empire had listened. And across the stars, old assumptions about humanity began to crack. Evan did not feel powerful. But for the first time, he felt that being human might mean more than survival. It might mean responsibility. End of part 3. News of what had happened in the lower archives spread quietly at first, then steadily. Within the palace, servants whispered. Guards watched Evan with new eyes, not suspicion, but respect. Scholars requested permission to observe him, though none were allowed to disturb him without reason. Evan wished things would slow down. He still felt like the same person. He still woke up tired. He still missed Earth food. He still preferred machines to conversations. But the galaxy did not care how he felt. The truth had survived. And once truth survives, it has a way of moving on its own. The alien queen summoned the full council 3 days later. This time, the chamber was not filled with ceremony alone. There was tension, curiosity, and something close to fear. Evan stood beside Velsha near the outer ring of the hall. Why am I here? Evan whispered. Velsha replied softly. Because this decision cannot happen without you present. Evan frowned. I'm not deciding anything. You already did, she said. The Queen entered, and the chamber fell silent. She did not go directly to the throne. Instead, she walked to the center of the hall and stood there, level with everyone else. That alone shocked the council. My people, the Queen began, her voice calm and clear. For centuries, we have honored tradition. For centuries, we have guarded our survival through caution. She paused. And for centuries, we allowed fear to shape our memory. Murmurs spread. The Queen raised a hand. The events of recent days have revealed a truth we buried long ago. Not because it was false, but because it challenged our understanding of power. She turned slightly, her gaze resting on Evan. When I knelt, she said, it was not to a ruler. It was not to a god. It was not to a conqueror. She faced the council fully. I knelt in remembrance. Silence filled the chamber. Velsha felt Evan tense beside her. The Queen continued. Long before this empire stood unchallenged, my ancestors were saved by a people who did not demand obedience. They did not claim our worlds. They did not rewrite our culture. Her voice softened. They stayed until we no longer needed them. Then they left. The council listened now. No interruptions. They were human, the Queen said. A ripple moved through the room. We erased them from history, she went on. Because others feared what that example meant. A strength that does not seek control unsettles those who depend on it. She gestured gently toward Evan. This human did not arrive seeking authority. He repaired a machine. He stood unarmed before those who feared him. He protected truth without force. The Queen lowered her head slightly. That is why I knelt. Evan's chest tightened. He had not expected this. One council member stood slowly. Your Majesty, they said, carefully choosing their words. Symbols inspire loyalty. Loyalty shifts power. Are we to accept that humanity now holds influence over this empire? The Queen met their gaze. No, she replied. Humanity holds no throne here. She turned again to Evan. Evan Hale, she said. Step forward. Evan hesitated, then obeyed. He stood in the center of the hall, feeling every eye on him. You have heard what has been said, the Queen told him. Tell us now, what do you seek? Evan swallowed. I don't seek anything, he said honestly. I didn't come here for this. The Queen nodded. Then, speak from that truth. Evan took a breath. "I'm not a leader," he said. "I don't want control. I don't want power. I just think, when someone helps you, without asking for anything back, that matters." The room was still. "My people aren't perfect," Evan continued. "We argue. We make mistakes. But when we see something broken, we try to fix it. Not because we want credit, because living with something broken hurts everyone." He looked around the chamber. "If remembering that makes some uncomfortable," he said quietly, "then maybe it's something worth remembering." Silence followed. Then, slowly, one council member lowered their head, then another. Not submission. Acknowledgement. The queen returned to her throne, but this time, she did not sit immediately. "By the authority of this crown," she declared, "the records of the silence will be restored. Humanity's name will stand where it was erased." A sharp breath echoed through the hall. "And by that same authority," she continued, "no human shall be bound by obligation for what their ancestors gave freely." She finally sat. "This empire will not demand loyalty from humanity," the queen said. "We will earn trust as it was once given." The decision was made. In the days that followed, something changed not just within the Theralan Empire, but beyond it. Messages spread to other systems, carefully at first, then openly. Records surfaced. Shared memories, proof of cooperation long forgotten. Other species began to question their own histories. Human diplomats arrived not with fleets, but with data, scholars, and engineers, not to claim power, but to answer questions. Evan watched it all from a quiet balcony. "You should be proud," Velsha said, standing beside him. "I don't feel proud," Evan replied. "I feel tired." She smiled faintly. That may be the most human response possible. A week later, the queen met Evan privately. "You may return to Earth whenever you wish," she told him. "You owe us nothing." Evan nodded. "I think I'd like that." She studied him carefully. "But know this," she added. "Your presence reminded us of who we were meant to be. That memory will not fade again." Evan bowed his head slightly. "I hope it helps." "It already has," the queen said. When Evan finally boarded the human transport ship, there were no ceremonies, no titles, no promises, just quiet farewells. As the ship lifted away from the palace, Evan looked out at the stars. He did not feel like a legend. He felt like a witness, back on Earth. Life returned to something close to normal. Evan went back to fixing systems. Translators. Power grids. Quiet problems, but occasionally, he would receive a message. A thank you from a Theralan scholar. A question from a distant world. A reminder that humanity's smallest actions could echo farther than anyone expected. The galaxy no longer saw humans as insignificant newcomers, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as something rarer. A people who would kneel to fix what was broken and stand when truth needed defending. And that was why the alien queen had knelt. End of Part 4.